Hello, it's Anna here and welcome back to my little kitchen, where today we're going to be making this jelly slice. It is a super old recipe. It is so spectacular and pretty. As you can see, it's not a cheesecake. It is so much lighter and it is really, really delicious to make. You can imagine if you turned up at a party with this one, everyone would think you are pretty cool. Today I'm going to show you from start to finish exactly how I make it so you can recreate it at home. So I think we should get stuck in. To kick things off, we are going to make the jelly. This recipe is a series of lots of little steps, and each one you're going to do and allow it, I'm going to fog up my glasses, you're going to allow it to sort of set. The steps themselves are easy, you just want to make sure that you've allowed some time in between each step so that the layers are going to be really distinct. So we have 3 cups of boiling water in here and a couple of packets of jelly crystals. You can choose the flavour of the jelly crystals to suit the occasion, so I'm going with raspberry today. Strawberry is wonderful, lemon is great. If you want to do Christmassy, you could do the raspberry and maybe green, lime. So really it's totally up to you. So we've given that a really good stir. The reason that we are making the jelly first is obviously we want it to cool down nicely before we pour it onto the next step. We don't actually want it to start setting, of course, but we do want it nice and cool. So make up the jelly first off. You'll notice that I didn't use the full amount of water that I would normally use to make jelly. The reason for that is we obviously wanted to set a little bit firmer than normal jelly would set. So we've used 3/4 of the amount of water than what we would normally do for 2 packets of jelly. Then we're going to line the tins. I've showed you before how I line my tins, but I'll just run through it again. I lightly spray it with some cheap as chips cooking spray, and then I'm going to line it with some baking paper. This is a super simple way to line your baking tins. I just lay a piece of paper over that. I've still stolen my daughter's scissors several months on. We don't have no idea where the kitchen scissors are. I'm going to just add some slits roughly where the corners are. And then I just press it in. And that just makes the corners a little bit tidier than if we were just to squish it in. That is going to make it really easy for us later when we want to lift out the entire slice. So make sure that you've got some grippable sides of your tin for later on. The base of this slice is a no-bake vanilla biscuit slice. So I'm going to use these, we call them super wines here in New Zealand, vanilla wines, Marie biscuits, arrowroot, just a plain vanilla biscuit, whatever you call it where you live. I'm going to pop those in the food processor to crush them up. It helps if it's plugged in properly, I find. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of lemon zest into the base, and then I'm going to add the melted butter as well. So that is 250 grams of biscuits, and this is 160 grams of melted butter. And then blitz that all together. Okay, here is the tin we prepared earlier. We're just going to press this in. A handy little trick when you are pressing biscuit base into the tin is just to use a measuring cup, because it helps you sort of press it evenly and get it right up to the edges. You can also use your hands. And then once you are happy that that is nice and compact and roughly even and smooth, then we'll pop this in the fridge while we prepare the middle layer. We are now on to the middle layer, which is the condensed milk layer. A lot of people think this is a cheesecake. It's really not. It's very light and very delicately flavored. So the only flavor that comes through in the middle is obviously the sweetened condensed milk and the lemon. So that's why I add both lemon juice and lemon zest to it, is just to give it a lovely lift in the flavor. So now to make the middle layer, we're going to add 1/2 cup of boiling water into a bowl. And to that we're going to add 2 teaspoons of gelatin powder. So obviously we need this to help the condensed milk set. And then give it a whisk together. So we've given that a super good whisk until the gelatin is completely dissolved, and then we're going to add into it some condensed milk. Glorious sweetened condensed milk. So that is a whole can of sweetened condensed milk, 395 grams of that. Then we're going to add the juice of a lemon. So when I say the juice of a lemon, that's not really useful because my dad's lemons are massive. Little shop ones can be tiny. So around 2 or 3 tablespoons of lemon juice goes in here. And then I like to add some lemon zest into this as well, around about a tablespoon. And then we'll whisk it all together until smooth. So that is nice and well combined now and smooth. We're going to pour it over the base that I just grabbed out of the fridge. So there you go, give this a little jiggle to make sure that it settles nice and smooth. We're going to pop this in the fridge now for 30 to 40 minutes because we want it to start firming up before we add the jelly layer on the top so that the layers stay really nice and distinct. So I'll come back and show you after this. So here we are half an hour later. You'll see that it is still soft, but it's not sticking to my hand. So that is perfect for what we need to do next. So the next step is we're going to pour our now cooled jelly over the top of this. The reason I have a very big spoon is this is how we're going to pour it over the top. And I'm a little bit nervous to do this on camera because well, the chances are quite high I'm going to throw it all over the bench. So this is to stop the jelly from disturbing the underside layer. So you just simply tip it over the back of the spoon, and as long as you tilt the spoon forward, it is going to disperse it around the slice instead of digging a big old hole into that condensed milk layer. So you know the saying, do as I say, not as I do. I haven't made my sides quite high enough on this side, so it is pretty much at that level, but it doesn't actually matter. I'm just going to press it up against the sides anyway, so it'll still form a lovely side of my slice. I'm going to carefully transfer this now into the fridge in a nice level shelf for about 4 to 6 hours until the jelly is set, or just as easy to pop it in overnight. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like when we slice it up next. I'm not going to lie, the most stressful part wasn't actually pouring the jelly over, it's getting this now into the fridge without spilling it everywhere so it can set. When you're lifting this, you'll find sometimes the paper does soften just with the jelly, so you're going to find that sometimes a side might tear or something. It's okay, there'll usually be a side that allows you to lift it as one. So we're just going to carefully peel off the paper, trying not to take too much of the jelly with us. So when I am cutting slices like this, I like to have a warm damp cloth beside me so that I can keep cleaning off the knife between cuts to try and get as smooth a cut as possible. You don't have to do this step where I'm cutting off the edge. You can absolutely just slice it and enjoy it, but if you want each piece to be able to see the beautiful crisp lines, then slice off a little edge and that can be a taster piece. So to cut off the edge, you just take your damp knife and just press it straight down through the jelly until you get to the hard biscuit bit, and then being very gentle with the jelly on the top, keep cutting down into the slice. And then these are little sample bits. So I've already done a terrible job of keeping it square. We're not going to worry too much about how perfect our shapes are when we cut this, because it is just going to look so cool regardless. And you always just put the good ones at the front, right? So let's get cutting. So we have our damp cloth here, and then we are just going to cut gently down into the jelly until we get to that biscuit base, and then sort of press and very gently run it back through. Let's see if I can show you how amazing this looks. Look at that, isn't that so cool? Those layers, you can imagine why at a kid's birthday party, everybody goes crazy for the jelly slice. And it's not as rich as a cheesecake, so it's really light and lovely. And kids tend to enjoy this a lot more. So how spectacular. So doing the big cuts is the hardest of all. The bigger and sharper your knife is, the easier this is going to be. As I say, you are not entering this to win any prizes, so don't overthink it. Just get stuck in and cut it. You can actually, if you do want a really perfect piece for some reason, you can always trim the sides. It's pretty forgiving, so don't freak out too much, but you will find once you've cut the strips, doing the little pieces is so much easier. Here we go, the final reveal. How good does that look? You can see the jelly wobbling there. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. You can see why if you took this to a party, everyone would think you were the cleverest thing in town. It is so delicious, so light and flavorful. You can absolutely reduce the jelly down to 1 if you prefer for the top layer to be a little bit thinner, which is more traditional, but I like it this way because I think it gives it that extra bit of flavor and it looks spectacular. So if you've made it this far, congratulations. Go and buy a copy of my cookbook, and I hope you have a fabulous day.